Welcome to day 4 of your macroeconomics lessons. Today we're going to focus on unemployment. But first let's talk about economic growth. Economic growth is a sustained period during which a nation's total output of goods and services increases. Now yesterday we talked about what this output of goods and services is called. Remember, it's called gross domestic product, or GDP. So when you have a period of time when your GDP is increasing, you have economic growth. Now remember, economies are usually measured in quarters. There are 4 quarters in a year. A sustained period would be almost a full year. So if you had 4 consecutive quarters, or 6 months, if you had 2 quarters of growth or of increased GDP, you would technically be classified as having economic growth. Now, we're going to look tomorrow at the business cycle, and you'll actually be able to see economic growth and economic decline. But I wanted to go ahead and give you the definition today so you would have a kind of a little background understanding of it for tomorrow's lesson when we start looking at the business cycle and actually what the curve looks like. The main focus today is going to be on unemployment. Unemployment is how many people in an economy are not working at a given time. Now remember, this is usually measured monthly. Yesterday you looked up the unemployment rate in a lot of different countries. For example, the United States right now is hovering somewhere around 8%. Now that does not mean 8% of the total U.S. population is not working. It is 8% of people who are looking for work are not working. In order to go into unemployment, that person must be actively looking for a job. Make sure you understand that. They have to be actively looking. It does not include children, retired people, students, parents who choose to stay home, or people who have given up looking for a job. Now let's focus on some of these. Retired people. Obviously retired people don't function in because they're not looking for jobs. They're not actively trying to find one. They've worked their whole life. They're done looking for a job. They're done working. Students don't factor into unemployment because technically you do have a job. You are a full-time student. It is your responsibility to just be a student. People who choose to stay home are not looking for work and thus not classified as unemployed. In order to be classified in the unemployment rate, you have to be actively looking and searching for a job. These are kind of the people that draw unemployment. Now I told you in class today, remember, less than 5% of people stay on unemployment for over 3 months. So most people don't abuse the system. Now let's focus on the types of unemployment. We're going to focus on 4 types. The first is structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is when changes in the structure of the workplace change the need for workers. For example, if new technology comes in that doesn't require the same number of workers to operate the machinery, you see a change in the structural employment level. For example, people get laid off. That is called structural unemployment. Also, let's say you work somewhere for a long time and now they require college degrees. If you don't have a college degree and you get laid off, that would be structural unemployment. The second type is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is workers who are in between jobs. So basically that time period when you're looking for a job. Also factored into frictional unemployment are college graduates who are trying to find a job. Most students aren't going to factor into, remember, unemployment because you have a full-time job as a student. But when you graduate, for example, when you graduate from college, you can go into this frictional unemployment, this time period in between jobs. They know you're going to be looking for a job when you graduate, so they give you this kind of this little like time period. Now remember, unemployment, you do receive unemployment benefits from the government. Now that's paid for by tax dollars. So really in theory, you're paying tax dollars in hopes of if you ever are unemployed, you'll be able to get these benefits. The next type of unemployment is called seasonal unemployment. This will probably be the most familiar to most of y'all because some of y'all have experienced seasonal unemployment before. Seasonal unemployment is unemployment because of the change of the seasons. For example, carpenters have less work in the winter than they do in other months. We talked about in class today several examples. We talked about like if you work at Lake Winnie, which is only open during the summer and spring and early fall months. Come wintertime, a lot of you found out you got laid off or released from your job because they weren't open anymore. Okay, you became unemployed. You are seasonally unemployed. You're just seasonal work. Take also retail work like at the mall or Walmart. They hire a lot of people around Christmas. The last type is called cyclical unemployment. It is unemployment directly related to swings in the business cycle. When a recession is going on, you have more people unemployed than you do during peak times. So when the economy is not doing well, you see a higher unemployment rate. This is cyclical unemployment. When it's doing better, you see a lower unemployment rate. Businesses can hire more people when they make more money, and as a result, unemployment goes down. But when they're forced to lay off people because they're not making money, you see an increase. Now remember, tomorrow we're going to look at the business cycle, and we'll show specifically where cyclical unemployment comes in. But just know it deals with the business cycle. During recession, you have less jobs than you do during times of expansion. The last 2 points are real quick covers. They're aggregate supply and aggregate demand. You don't need to know a lot about this for your EOCT. Basically, all you need to know is the aggregate means total. Make sure you get that the word aggregate, in our connotation that we're going to be using it, means total. So the total value of goods and services that all firms would produce in a specific period of time at various price levels is aggregate supply. That means how much of a certain product is being produced by all the companies that produce it at all prices. Now don't get this confused with market supply, which was at one price. So we had all the businesses at one price. The total is the market supply. Aggregate supply is the total at all the prices. But if you're looking at an aggregate supply or an aggregate demand graph, it's going to work exactly the same as a regular supply and demand graph. Aggregate is on the total. Usually they try to throw that word in on our EOCTs to kind of confuse you, but hopefully from doing this lesson you won't be confused. Last thing, aggregate demand, which we said is the same thing. Total quantity of goods and services demanded at different price levels. If you have any questions about any of these videos, be sure you ask in class. You can leave comments on the YouTube page. I should be able to see them. I hope these videos are helping. Remember, we're still doing our little mini lectures in class. But do not hesitate if you have any questions to let me know. Make sure you're staying up with your progress charts. That's really important. Some of you are already getting a little bit behind, but I think we are well on our way to better understanding. Your tests will be probably end of next week, so hopefully we'll all be ready. Have a great night.